was pretty handy at Zandvoort a week ago, was Richard, but it was Chris Hart that came out on top. Chris, a bit of a sleeper here, isn't he, really? Down in 5th position on the grid. Definitely expect a little more from him. This is his home track as well, remember, so it's the track that he's got by far the most experience racing at. We are, though, I think, about ready to go racing, and the field lining up then with the revs starting to rise on the grid. We've got Richard Towler on pole position. We've got Riley Phillips alongside him, the youngster, with Pierce Stockton and Julian Thomas on row number 2. The revs really started to rise now. The red lights are on. They go out now. Away we go. Good start made from pole position by Richard Towler. He launches the car down towards Hall Corner, and a good start by Chris Hart as well. Tries to come up the middle there from the 3rd row of the grid. He can't quite get there, though. It's going to be Towler that leads. It's Phillips in second. Thomas is out on the grass and goes right round the outside of Pierce Stockton to get into 3rd position, but already a small gap starting to develop between the top 2 as they descend the hill into Cascades. Slightly cold tyres on this first lap. They've got to be careful that they've got the grip level. They bounce over the curb, both of the top 2 coming out of Cascades corner. The perfect start, though, from our front row men. Towler holds the lead, Riley Phillips second, but watch Julian Thomas go. He's right back with them already in 3rd.
Yes, he is indeed, and this looks like Riley Phillips is going to try and make a move down the inside. There was a gap left for him there by Towler, but not quite able to complete the move. Good to see a nice, clean start. Looks like most of us are through nice and safely, but it is Towler who's going to lead the way on this opening lap. Phillips there in second. Then we've got Julian there third, Chris Hart in 4th place, and Pierce Stockton in 5th.
Oh, we've got Chris Wetherall off, though. Chris Wetherall's in the barriers with David Denyer. Oh, it's carnage at the Britain chicane. Around has gone one of the Wasp cars. Basically, the entire second half of the through the Britain chicane. David Denyer made contact, I think, with Chris Wetherall. That sparked it all off, and basically anyone that's outside of the top 10 is currently in a logjam up at the Britain chicane. So sadly, well, it was a clean start. We got as far as Britain's before it all kicked off, but kick off it well and truly did, and several of our midfield runners already in strife. Back to the leaders, though, as they head through Druids for the first time, and Riley Phillips all over the curb there. That means that the storming Julian Thomas might have a chance to attack for second place here as they make their way along the straight down to Lodge Corner. He has a look at the inside line. Race Logic going for second position at the end of the opening lap, and Riley Phillips sees him coming, leaves him room and tees up the switchback manoeuvre perfectly, carries the speed off the corner, and he's back into second place. So end of lap 1 then, it's Towler that leads the way. It's Riley Phillips in second. Third position will be Julian Thomas. 4th place for Chris Hart, who muscled his way past Pierce Stockton with a little bit of contact, it must be said, as they went through the Shell hairpin. The 4th, Stockton is 5th, though, trying to fight back down the avenue. John Tomlinson 6th, Jay Shepherd is 7th, 8th for the Vikings, Chris Walton 9th, and then that big gap back, so the top 9 got away with it. Everyone from
the top 2 are quickly escaping here. I think we may have had a quick change behind, but battle for 4th is going on as well, so we'll just pick that up now. We can see Pierce Stockton, I think, may have just lost 4th place there to John Tomlinson, so a good little battle between these two, but really, Jamie, they need to try and work together here to make sure they keep up with the top 3, because we've got Julian ahead just getting a little bit of space, and the top 2 are escaping.
There is no mandatory pit stop in this race. There's a problem of some sort then for Pierce, and that is a real shame. He started 3rd on the grid. He was showing good pace, but he did rather get beaten up in those early laps, had the contact from Chris Hart, and then lost out again in the next melee and had dropped off the podium. But one of our potential podium finishers then already in trouble.
I can just say he's going to be back in the top 6 anytime soon. He's been absolutely gobbling up Chris Walton. He's gone through at Cascades, and that with the visit to the pits of Pierce Stockton, puts the 106 car back into the top 6. But about half a lap ago, he was a second and a half behind Chris Walton. He's already up ahead of him, but a big gap now to try and catch to the next driver, which is Jay Shepherd in 5th.
Yeah, he was. Well, I mean, I have to say, massively impressed with Richard here. I mean, we were impressed after Zandvoort, weren't we? But this is, in a way, even better, because at Zandvoort he spent a lot of that race chasing, didn't he? He had, I seem to remember he got involved in some contact at the start and kind of fell back a little bit. But in this one, he's led from pole position. He's got a 10th or 2 in hand every lap, it seems, over Riley Phillips. He's now a second and a half behind him. And I mean, they're 7 seconds clear of Julian Thomas. Julian is a former champion, for goodness sake. So this is a really impressive drive, this from Richard. So far, touch wood, hasn't put a foot wrong.
To the front of the field, we'll pick up Riley Phillips.
Yes, who's about to lap. I think this is Neil Smith, possibly, in the track-focused car. The race leader in traffic as well, Christian Rose, doing his best to stay out of the way. So this is another factor. This is a much shorter lap than we had at Zandvoort. It's also a bigger field. There's a slightly wider spread of, I don't want to use the word talent, but speed maybe, and that's what the risk is, because Riley Phillips had to try and dive up the inside of the track-focused car there, and there wasn't really room for the two of them through the Britain chicane, but this was something we did not see at Zandvoort. No back markers, no lappery, no traffic, and to the point I was making a couple of minutes ago about Richard Towler, yes, he's got the speed, but is he going to be able to handle the tyres wearing out, the fuel depleting, the traffic that he's going to encounter? You know, encountering these back markers gets harder and harder the less tyre grip you have. So towards the end of the race, there's every chance this could tighten up, but for the time being, it's playing into his hands. He definitely gained out of that situation. Riley had been 4 tenths, he'd been over a second and a half slower through the first sector, so definitely Richard Towler benefiting from that.
It's a narrow circuit, isn't it? I mean, keep your comments coming in, guys. Keep this chat going. We'll read out as many as we can throughout the race. So if you want to give a shout out to anyone, give us your thoughts on the championship, how you're getting through isolation, maybe as well. We'll get as many read out as possible. If you have a question as well to either Andy, Chris, or Jamie, do send them in.
You're not answering questions then, are you paid by the answer, are you?
Oh no, I'm oh, there we go. You don't want to know the answer to that. Should we say that? Yeah. I don't even answer those.
He has to run it by his people first to see if it's appropriate for him.
Oh dear. Well, things are starting to settle into this sort of rhythm now. The middle part of the race tends to be the calmer portion. Again, we saw this last time at Zandvoort, so sticking true to life. You have your mad and mental first few minutes, then it calms down, everyone settles into a pattern, and then you get towards the end of the race, it all tends to kick off again. But it was Ed Worthington did to 11th. Steve Walton had a nightmarish lap there, and he's dropped from about 9th place down to 12th. So Ed Worthington did indeed pick up spot there.
Yes, indeed. Yes. I tell you what, it's getting close for 7th and 8th, isn't it? Let's go on board David Denyer now. Is he? Well, the gap is 7 tenths, isn't it, to the Viking car ahead of us? So we'll stick with this one for a bit. But David Denyer in 8th there, Jamie.
Yeah, and it's just watching him going through Druids and a little bit wide as he comes out. That would have unsettled the car as he goes under the car loop bridge down into Lodge Corner. Mark Home pulled away a little bit. He gained 3 tenths on that lap. Lots of curb taken by Mark Home as he goes through Lodge. Hello to Street Demon. Thanks for that. Anyway, moving on. As they go across the line, Mark Home's actually pulled out by half a second as they go through Old Hall. So that little wobble coming out of Druids, guys, has unsettled David Denyer as he runs wide again coming out of Old Hall. So he'll need to sort of calm it down, regroup, and then try and pounce again.
Shenanigans at the Britain chicane on the first lap. They're not a million miles away from going. I don't know. They're about half a lap or so away from the leader at the moment, so they're still safely on the lead lap. And Denyer bounces over the curbs coming out of Britain's. Despite that, though, gets a good run. So Mark Home is going to have to start defending here before too much longer. They head into the braking zone down at Hislops. And you can see how much more speed David is taking into the chicane there. Has a little peek up the inside into Knickerbrook Corner. But Chris McCarthy, I think this move is imminent, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. In fact, let's jump on board, shall we, with David Denyer now then, as they come up the hill once more, so we can see the Viking car ahead of us. 4 tenths is the gap, as you can see to the bottom right of your screen, but you don't really need to be given a gap when it's this close. There's the Viking car just almost running a little bit wide there, and that's going to allow Denyer to get a little bit closer in the tow as we come down towards the final corner then. Not close enough to take a lunge down the inside just yet, but as you can see, close enough to fill the mirrors of the Viking car, who gets a little bit out of shape on the exit, and Denyer could have a run into Old Hall here, Andy.
Pulls to the inside line. He's signalling his intent, but of course that means he pulls out of the slipstream. So Mark Home actually stays ahead of him. As soon as he ducked back behind, though, he picked up the toe, gained another car length, and that got him close enough to make the move into Old Hall Corner. Avoids running too wide on the exit, but Home is coming back at him. They're side by side again down through Dentons, and Mark Home might get the Viking car back in front. A battle on the brakes into Cascades, though, and the inside line usually prevails, and indeed it does. David Denyer had to work for that, but he is now through them. He's into the top 7.
Yeah, brilliant stuff.
That somewhere in the first half of the lap, but the battle for 5th is on now. Chris Hart has caught Jay Shepherd, and first sector time for Jay Shepherd was 10 seconds off the pace, so he must have been off somewhere in the first half of the lap, and now it's game on. Chris Hart could be about to break back into the top 5. They make their way back over Clay Hill, and again we'll be able to see here the slipstream start to take effect on what is a surprisingly high-speed circuit. Oulton Park known for its tight and technical nature, but it's actually got a pretty high average speed, and Chris Hart trying to keep that speed up through Druids Corner, heads down underneath the Paul Warwick Bridge towards the braking zone at Lodge. I don't think he's quite close enough this time, but Chris Hartley, this battle all of a sudden has ignited, and Jay Shepherd, having just made a mistake, is going to be a little bit on the back foot. This could be Chris Hart's chance.
Yeah, I think that whatever the moment was, all told, cost him about 13, 14 seconds, but he's just dusted himself off, gathered himself back together again, and onto a fresh lap. He's just keeping Chris Hart at arm's length for now. So that battle just settling, but he goes wide. He's done that a few times today. He goes wide on the exit to Old Hall Corner, the first bend, down through the avenue, down through to Cascades. He looks okay, looks well set. Chris Hart, who you're right on board with now, in 6th place, still just about 3/4 of a second behind him. More dust kicked up there through onto the straight now as they head towards Island Bend, flat out through here. Chris Hart just falling away at this juncture as well by 1 or 2 tenths of a second. Behind them, David Denyer has just started to stretch his legs away from Mark Home in the Viking car for 7th place. That was after Mark actually held on to him for the next half a lap or so after that move, but the gap now growing, and the other 2 Race Logic drivers, 3rd and 4th, John Tomlinson doing a fantastic job here to hold off what is the team leader in the multiple championship winning team, Julian Thomas, and that gap's pretty much stayed at 4.4 seconds for about 4 or 5 laps now, so John Tomlinson looking good for a podium.
Yeah, his previous lap a little bit quicker as well, the Julians, so a couple of 1/10 or so gained on the previous lap. He's going a little bit slower though, about 1/10 or so slower than Julian on this lap, sort of trading sector times, but I'm still very much focusing on this fight for 5th because Jay Shepherd is not out of the woods yet. Chris Hart is not quite as close as he was a lap ago, but Chris Hartley's absolutely right. It's been a slightly erratic drive, this, from Chris Hart, who we were saying earlier on. I know we tease and we joke and we say that he's a bit of a loose cannon, but he isn't really. He's actually a very consistent driver usually, and consistently quick at that, but a couple of mistakes as he tries to get to grips with the car. They've got a new setup on the car this weekend as well. It's not quite the same car that they were driving at Zandvoort for the test a week ago, and that might have just played into the hands of some more than others. But Chris Hart's had a good exit from Lodge Corner there. He's back in the slipstream, and I'd be fascinated to ride on board actually with Chris Hart through this first part of the lap, because again we get the sense of the slipstream here, and particularly the next straight. They're heading down the avenue now, but then they'll come out of Cascades onto the longest straight on the track, the fastest point on the track, the Lakeside Straight, and Chris Hart might just be able to start teeing up a move here.
Yeah, we're on board with him now then as they make their way down the straight. Then you can see Chris Hart very, very close now, trying to fill the left mirror there of Jay Shepherd. Jay Shepherd not biting though, not going defensive just yet. Of course, hard to overtake into there, almost flat out through that left-hander as they now come into the right-hand hairpin. No gap on the inside for Chris Hart to go through just yet though, but down the chicane it could be a different story. So the run through this next chicane is going to be very, very important for Jay Shepherd. We're going to stay on board with Chris Hart for it then. Let's see if he can get a move lined up. Can he get a good run out of here? In fact, Jay driving very well under pressure. May have taken a little bit of grass there, Andy, but did well to open up a gap again over Chris Hart as they now come back down the hill.
I thought Jay Shepherd had run too wide then through the right hand and taken too much curb, but I think Chris Hart did exactly the same thing. This could be Chris's chance though, because this is Christian Rose struggling along with that controller, remember. Does a very good job to stay out of the way there. That's not a nice place to catch a back marker, but Chris Hart again, 2 wheels on the grass. Doesn't seem to slow him down this time though, and as he heads over Clay Hill, he's back in the tow. He's definitely closer now than he's been for a lap or so. arguably the best overtaking opportunity on this track is Lodge Corner, and that's the corner coming up next. A good exit through Druids is key, and it looks like Jay Shepherd takes too much curb. He slides out wide, and this is surely the best chance that the Domino's car has had so far. Chris Hart in the tow. Jay Shepherd knows it though, moves to the middle of the road to cover. Is there a gap on the inside? There isn't. And so Chris Hart has to bail out again. Takes a wide line into Lodge, trying to carry the speed off the corner, which he does. Can he get an overlap over Deer's Leap? It's going to be tight. Does Jay Shepherd move to the inside to cover? No, he doesn't. And Chris Hart finally has the overlap he's been looking for. They're almost dead level at the start-finish line, but the Domino's car on the inside line for Old Hall Corner will go through with a bit of contact, though. Onto the grass goes Chris Hart. They're sideways over the exit of the corner, and that was not the way we wanted that battle to end.
No, and it's still going to kick off here. Jay Shepherd now trying to come back at him on the outside there. You can see Jay Shepherd going to try and line himself up for a switchback, but just getting a little bit out of shape. That's going to lose him some time on the exit, and I think Chris Hart, that is now job done.
Pretty intense stuff, wasn't it? But it is hard to overtake here in Oulton Park, and Chris Hart showing us exactly why, because even when you get a run, even when you're quicker than the car in front of you, it's not that easy to actually find a way past them. And yeah, that was a pretty good battle. Jay Shepherd not giving in though, and might yet have another go at getting back through. Jamie, I know you know well, both of these drivers pretty well, but particularly Mr. Hart. I'm sure you're happy to see him moving forward, but he's not having an easy time of it today, is he?
He's not, no, and I've got visions of Chris and Jay, because they are really good friends, as we all are. They're probably absolutely howling in their various rigs, because I know they've both got sim rigs as they break into his lot. Chris covering the line there from Jay, but he was compromised who left it, and there's a bit of contact there. Jay backs out of it, not to gain the unfair advantage. Very quickly on the chat, Zoe Burt's asking why is there no damage. Also, Zoe, Marcus Clutton, Andy Bicknell are all screaming for the safety car to be sent out.
Well, to answer her first question, if we had damage, we'd have no one left at this stage, wouldn't we? So I think that's possibly why.
Oh, and they want it to rain as well.
Oh, well,
So demanding, isn't she, Zoe?
I know. Well, mind you, we do know and love Zoe for it, don't we? She's a formidable presence in the paddock, is Zoe, and we love having her around. But unfortunately, the weather is something we can't control right now. In theory, I could jump into this session in my Mercedes-AMG GT3 car.
There it is in the pit lane. You can see it. I've got
but
one as well.
I shall resist the temptation for the time being. Okay?
Should we go on, Andy? Just us and cause some absolute chaos out there. I mean, let's go out the pits, do a left-hand hairpin, and just start going for it.
Things are a bit boring in the final 5 minutes, maybe.
So we'll ride on board with you as well.
As I cause utter chaos in my GT3 car, yes, I can see that going down well.
Today, I've been in a GT3 race online with Andy, and he destroyed most of the opposition at Brands. When I was in there, I don't think he realised I was in the same lobby as him. But no, Andy's you were a very, very good peddler. So
I was going to say Chris Hartley's the one who won. Chris Hartley's the one who won an online race yesterday. So maybe we should be getting him in there.
Didn't tell me what level it was set to, though, did it?
Well, I did well enough to just get it out there for you. You didn't have to say that part.
I know. It wasn't on beginner. It wasn't on beginner, but it wasn't on the best setting either.
I think there needs to be a... Go on, Chris.
So you got to bed yourself in. There's been a change earlier on in this lap out of the top 10, but it's worth mentioning that the Chris Wetherall car got ahead of Neil Smith up to 13th place. And has already got 3 seconds clear. So he had a good little dice for a couple of laps about 10-15 minutes ago with the...
Hart went one way and Shepherd went the other way onto the grass, and somehow they came out of it still in the same positions. But I think every time they come up against Nick Nunn's car, it's going to cause issues for the leading cars, because they don't really know where he's going. But this battle refuses to die. Jay Shepherd is very much staying with Chris Hart here. They're running the same sort of pace as Julian Thomas, although he's a long way up the road, as we know, and this remains by far and away the closest battle in the race.
Yeah, we're just on board with Jay now, taking... I was going to mention track limits, but I don't think it's worth doing that anymore. I think that's just what you have to get used to when you're watching Funcup. But Jay, I tell you what, he's done a good job, hasn't he? Because some people would have thought Chris Hart would have just disappeared. I have to say I was guilty of that myself. I thought that was the battle over. Chris had made the move, and now he was going to break the turn and get away. But Jay still with him at the moment. This is great to see. I have to say, this is reminding me of a battle I had with Jay in karting. If he can hear this, I'm sure it might put him off a little bit. Yeah, it was in a pro kart race. I raced with Team 7, thanks to Jay, and it was great. We had a good little battle on the last lap, I'll tell you that, but almost ended in tears. But yeah, this is definitely bringing back memories of that. So, but yeah, we'll stay on board with Jay for a little bit longer as he continues to try and hassle the back of Chris Hart, who's actually run wide there at Old Hall. So here we go, Andy.
Yep, this could be another opportunity then, because you can see the extra speed Jay can take. Has he got the inside line into Cascades? He has. Brilliant stuff. And the Wasp car goes back through. Jay Shepherd runs a bit wide though. Chris Hart now gets the slipstream, of course. In fact, he doesn't need it. He's carried so much more speed off the corner that he's already up the inside. The next corner is a left-hander, and someone's going to have to back out because you can't really run side by side through here. They're going to try it though. Jay Shepherd has to give way. Chris Hart slides across the nose of the Jay Shepherd car, and you have to say the close quarters in which they're racing. Oh, Shepherd runs a bit wide there at the hairpin, but the close quarters in which they're racing here, lap after lap, literally sliding in front of each other, inches between front and rear bodywork. It is a miracle they haven't made contact yet, and that is a testament to the fact that these are two very quick and very experienced drivers. They're racing hard, but they're racing respectfully as well. And this is exactly what we would see in the Funcup Championship in real life. This sort of to and fro action. And one of the things that I really love about this form of racing is that, as you sort of alluded to there, Chris, usually you'd see the quicker car catch another car, pass another car, and then get away from the other car. But in Funcup racing, that's not the way it tends to work. An overtake might be made, but that does not mean that you've got that position in the bag.
No, not at all. And I think if they caught with David Denyer, I think this might be they have caught, or am I wrong there? But
Worthing, possibly.
That's Martin Gibson.
Martin Gibson. Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
But there we go. But we're going to go on board with Jay once again. And this battle will just... it could go all the way to the end unless they decide to take each other out. And now I've said that, I hope that doesn't happen. But brilliant stuff. And this is, I'll tell you what, this is what esports is about during this time, Chris, isn't it? It's, we may all be in isolation. We may all be locked in. We can't get to the racetrack. But what a good way to still enjoy Funcup and virtual racing. It's brilliant stuff here between Chris Hart and Jay. I'm sure this is just as intense as it would be as if they were on the circuit for real.
Yeah, watching the onboard in particular, you forget you're watching, a computer screen at one point. You stepped into the race. This is just as they race in real life. You've got a race winner here, Jay Shepherd, really quick driver, race instructor, and Chris Hart, multiple race winner. Wow, that was absolutely a bit too close there, wasn't it? Chris Hart came out better, even though he was on the outside line there, and dropped back behind the back marker as well, Jay Shepherd. And unfortunately, that might be the end of that battle. It got close for a few laps, but that was a bit too close.
I'm sorry I said it. I'm sorry I said it, everyone. I said it. I said that shouldn't happen, and it's happened. I apologise.
You've not got a great record tonight.
But he's closed the gap by the best part of a second over the last two laps to the race leader, Richard Towler. So is the racer now starting to come good now that he's the one driver of the two that's used to having to deal with a consistently long race duration? Is Richard Towler's the race leader, just starting to flag a bit. As yet, he's still got a 5-second advantage, but Riley's absolutely keeping the pressure up in second place.
Well, Riley was 2 tenths faster in the first sector, and he was another 10th faster in the second, so he's taken 3 tenths out of Richard already on this lap. And this is what we were alluding to earlier on. As the tyres wear out, the fuel goes down, that maybe is where the real-life racers have the edge. Let's see what the eventual lap time is. It's 2 minutes 0.6 for Towler. And actually, sorry, that's the best lap, excuse me, 2 minutes 1.4 for Towler, 2 minutes 0.9 for Riley. So yeah, takes about half a second out of him. The gap is under 5 seconds. For, I think, I'm right in saying, Chris McCarthy, the first time since maybe the first 5 or 10 minutes of the race. So definitely starting now to swing back the way of Riley Phillips here.
Yeah, we'll stay on board with him for this lap. You can see the gap on the bottom right. That will be updating, and it's going to update every single corner. But it was as low as just under 4 seconds, so it is definitely coming down here. Riley Phillips does have some traffic ahead of him, but that's something Richard Towler would have had to deal with. It's going to be a race of that, isn't it? It's going to be a race of who can get through the traffic the best when it comes, and then obviously the race of endurance as well. It's an hour-long race. Not everyone will be used to doing as long as that. And through the chicane, Riley just getting a little bit out of shape there, but claws it back together okay then. Either that or that's just how you get a Funcup round there quickly. But we'll stay on board with Riley Phillips for the rest of this lap, Andy. But yeah, I'd say it was a good spot there from Chris. This could definitely come down. It's got enough time, this gap, to come down. So 10 minutes to go. I've got to say a shout out to Jay Shepherd as well. That gap was 3 seconds when they had that incident. It's now under a second. So if we have a little look with Jay Shepherd, we go on board with him now. You can see that is Chris Hart just ahead of us. So this battle is going to resume.
As soon as he dropped back, he put in his personal best lap of the race. His previous lap was Jay Shepherd's fastest, a 2-minute 1.7. So you could see the amount of time they were losing, really, from battling with each other. As entertaining as it was for us, they definitely weren't going as quickly as they could do. But now Jay Shepherd, as you quite rightly said, is almost back with Chris Hart. There's some traffic ahead too. And who is that then in the blue car that they're about to come up and overtake? They're going to catch it somewhere between Britain's and the Hislop chicane, I reckon. Let's hope it stays out of the way. Then they've got Nick Nunn ahead of them as well, and that's always cause for concern, isn't it? So over the hill they go down into the braking zone once again, and they're going to not quite get past yet. That's the 357 car then, by the looks of it, that they are coming up against. And where are they going to catch it all? Chris Hart a bit squirrely through the chicane there. Jay Shepherd sees a chance to get through, and now both of these back markers are right in front of them. And I think this could be about to get a little bit dicey, Chris McCarthy, as they head towards Druids.
Yes, indeed. So let's jump on board with Jay Shepherd then, shall we? We can see Chris Hart ahead of us. We can see the 2 back markers as well, one of them being the glitchy car. So that's going to make things twice as hard then as they come down towards the final corner. Jay Shepherd's got a good run here. Might even throw it down the inside. And Chris Hart's going to have to go to the middle of the circuit to cover that one off just ahead of us. That's 1 back marker down. So 1 more to go. And Jay Shepherd, they're just getting a little bit out of shape, as did Chris Hart as well. So it's almost neck and neck now as we come down to Old Hall, Andy, and we've got a back marker to deal with as well.
Yeah, they're going to go up the inside here. I think Chris Hart goes to the inside. He'll be committed on the brakes, tries to get through. There's a bit of contact there, almost with the back marker, which finds itself on the grass. But that delays Chris Hart too. Shepherd is definitely quicker off the corner. And we've been here before, haven't we? He looks to the inside line into Cascades. It's an almost action replay. If you like to go, oh, they make contact this time. Chris Hart out into the gravel trap. Jay Shepherd, I think, saved his moment. Yes, he has. And has continued on his way, but then makes contact with the back marker and ends up on the grass. But Chris Hart is off the road in the gravel. Nick Nunn has just gone off in sympathy behind him as well. And Jay Shepherd now is the one that takes advantage of a little bit of contact. And that was almost too close to call, really. I think one zigged and the other zagged, and they just banged wheels as they came down the hill. Not a part of the track you want to be making contact at. But it's Jay Shepherd that goes through into that 5th position now. And with a sizable margin too, as he heads down towards the Britain chicane. He's got maybe 2 or 3 seconds in hand now, I reckon, over Chris Hart.
Yes, indeed. I was going to say the gap for Riley, I don't know what's happened, but appears to have had a bad lap somewhere, because that gap's gone back up to 7 seconds. So I'd say as long as Richard can keep it on the track, Chris, I think he should be okay. It just seems like Riley, he was having to push very hard. Perhaps somewhere he just pushed a little bit too hard.
Yeah, well, we left him. They're working up some traffic as well, weren't they? So
in front, Richard Towler seems to have this one more or less in control. I think we're going to see a change of position in the final.
What's happened to the gap? What's happened to the gap? It's halved. It's 2.7 seconds.
Richard's had contact.
Oh no, Riley's had contact.
No, Richard has. The gap is 2.8 seconds now as Richard comes up to the start-finish line. So it's half. So it's game on.
Right, okay. Well, Riley himself just had a moment in traffic as well, so it ends up at 3.3 seconds, but that is just the incentive Riley will need. He's got another car to get past coming out of Old Hall Corner, which he needs to be careful with. It's the it's the Viking car. It's Mark Home that's right in front of him, the 7th place car, and it's not letting him through either. This is not what Riley Phillips needs. The Viking car, though, a bit too deep on the brakes into Cascades. Now Phillips is released. He's only got just under 3 minutes to go, though. So realistically, we might just squeeze 3 laps in. It'll be tight, but at least a lap and a half or so to go. Can he do it? Well, he's putting the pressure on Richard, and that was not the time for Richard to lose that sort of ground.
No, not at all. And Riley just getting a little bit out of shape through the hairpin there. So unfortunate that for Riley. But that's as quick as it can change, Chris Hartley, isn't it? It can change that quickly in Funcup. So it's not over until it's over, because that could happen again to Richard Towler. If it does, Riley Phillips is half the distance closer he was before. So I'd say we've just got to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, he smelled his opportunity, didn't he? But again, the traffic didn't fall for him either, did it, for Riley? No. So it opened back up again, and just pushing, because he sensed his chance. He then, as you said, got it slightly wrong, slightly too tight through the curbs, through the Shell Oil's hairpin. So gap back out almost 4 seconds again. But if there's any more, I was trying to look ahead. I don't think Richard has got any traffic in the foreseeable future. But you're right, one bit of traffic or one mishap on one corner, and that 3.8 seconds can quickly come back down again. And it's starting to do exactly that.
We've had a comment, by the way, asking if we will do post-race interviews. Yes, we can. We can go and chat to the teams live. We were doing it during practice and quali. At the moment, it looks like we'll be able to go to speak to Riley Phillips, who we're looking at now, and also Jay Shepherd and Ed Worthington. So we can speak to 3 drivers as long as they don't disappear too quickly after the race.
And they all need to just stay in their cars after the race.
Just stay in the chat, and then we can go and speak to them.
I know they'll all be eager to head back into their back gardens and enjoy a last drink in the sunset. But let's hope we can catch up with a couple of them. Riley Phillips, who we will definitely talk to after the race, just had another moment coming out of Old Hall Corner. So that 3.5 second lead might just start to go up. Oh, and off has gone John Tomlinson. John Tomlinson from 3rd place has gone heavily into the barriers at Old Hall Corner, and Julian Thomas might just get through. Oh, they make contact as he does go through, and Julian Thomas is into a podium place at the expense of his teammate going on to the final lap of the race. And that was, I didn't see what happened. I don't think there was another car involved there. John Tomlinson just lost it going into Old Hall Corner, went heavily into the barriers. I only noticed it as I was flicking through the field to see if anything was happening, so I don't know if you caught it on the stream, but John is down to 4th now and only has just over half a lap left to try and get back on the podium.
Yeah, we just picked up the end of it there, so I'm really unfortunate that, but drama here right at the death of the race, and it's a change for a podium position as well. So there you go. That is what Funcup living up to his name once again.
We are on the final lap then. The time has now ticked down to 0, and it is going to be not a surprise win, because I think we all know that Richard would be on the pace here this weekend, but this has been a truly dominant performance, hasn't it, from the driver who, I remind you, is not a professional racing driver. He has some sim racing experience, but his main career is certainly not spent behind the driving wheel. Maybe it should be, though, because as he comes out of Lodge Corner, there's one more back marker to deal with. And Richard Towler is your first official winner of the Funcup Esports Series at Oulton Park. He takes the checkered flag. And what a performance that was from Richard. 2nd place goes the way of Riley Phillips. The eventual winning margin was 2.8 seconds after an hour of hard-fought racing. And that was some really, really intense stuff. 3rd place, though, who will that go to? That's the question. It looks as though Julian Thomas is just about going to hang on. He heads into Lodge Corner for the final time, and it's going to be a brilliant finish here still for the Race Logic squad. But which they were in at the start of the final lap. It's Julian Thomas who rounds out the podium. 4th place goes the way of John Tomlinson, and in the end he misses out by 1.3 seconds, and John revisits the bit of the tyre wall at Old Hall Corner that ended his podium charge a few minutes ago. Jay Shepherd is the next one due to see the checkered flag, and it looks like he's going to get the better of Chris Hart in what was arguably the best battle of the race. It may not have been for a podium place, but it was a to and fro squabble that lasted the best part of half an hour between 2 good mates, 2 very experienced Funcup racers, and Jay Shepherd is the man that's going to come out on top. He rounds Lodge Corner, heads through Deer's Leap, and Jay Shepherd, despite telling us in practice that he was struggling quite a lot with the car's handling, gets himself a top 5 after a brilliant duel with Chris Hart, who comes through a couple of seconds later in 6th position. And I think that is it. Everyone else, I'm pretty sure, was a lap down. The Vikings are 7th. David Denyer is 8th. He wasn't quite able to catch them in the end. Chris Walton in 9th, and Ed Worthington in 10th position. What a race that was, though, and what a victory for Richard Towler.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. Yeah, great race.
So, and I'm pretty sure Jamie and Chris Hartley will agree with me that really was. It felt like a Funcup race, didn't it? It was only an hour, so I mean, we'd usually just be getting into our stride at this point with another 3 hours ahead of us. But the actual racing we saw there, Chris Hartley, was very much reminiscent of what we see in real world Funcup racing. It was great overtaking, re-overtaking, slipstreaming, side-by-side stuff, and a close finish, 2.8 seconds at the end of an hour of racing there between the top two is not bad at all. I don't know about you, but I rather enjoyed myself there.
Yeah, absolutely terrific. As you say, down to the last lap, as it always is in the Funcup. You had the drama with just a couple of laps to go where suddenly Richard Towler's lead more than halved, and just a sniff of an opportunity for a victory for Riley Phillips, but Richard gathered it back together, got the win. And then, of course, you had the last lap drama in the battle for third place between the two Race Logic teammates. John Tomlinson, who drove so well all the way through that race, he'd be kicking himself to give that podium spot up to Julian Thomas so late on in the race. But the battle of the race for me was that one for fifth place between Jay Shepherd and Chris Hart, lap after lap. Chris caught and passed Jay, and then Jay stuck with him, got back into his groove, got quicker and quicker, seemed to learn a little bit from Chris Hart, and then got back past him, and then there was more than one bit of contact between them, and in the end, Jay coming off on top there to get that fifth place. So some really, really good fun battles, but that was the battle of the race for me for fifth place between Jay Shepherd and Chris.
Yeah, definitely.